Hi everyone, welcome back. This week we'll be reading selections from chapters 25 to I think 31 of the book of Numbers. All right, let's get started. Chapter 25. While Israel was living at Shittim, the people degraded themselves by having illicit relations with the Moabite women. These then invited the people to the sacrifices of their God, and the people ate of the sacrifices and worshipped their God. When Israel thus submitted to the rites of Baal of Peor, the Lord's anger flared up against Israel, and he said to Moses, "Gather all the leaders of the people and hold a public execution of the guilty ones before the Lord, that his blazing wrath may be turned away from Israel." So Moses told the Israelite judges, "Each of you shall kill those of his men who have submitted to the rites of Baal at Peor." So in other words, this happened before. The Israelites were marrying and starting, trying to create families with a group of non-Jewish people, people who did not follow God, and God gave them all strict orders not to do that. So this is again the Israelites disobeying God and him punishing them. Yet a certain Israelite came and brought in a Midianite woman to his clansmen in the view of Moses and the whole Israelite community, where they were weeping at the entrance of the meeting tent. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly and, taking a lance in hand, followed the Israelite into his retreat, where he pierced the pair of them, the Israelite and the woman. Thus the slaughter of Israelites was checked, but only after 24,000 had died. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger from the Israelites by his zeal for my honor among them. That is why I did not put an end to the Israelites for the offense to my honor. Announce therefore that I hereby give him my pledge of friendship, which shall be for him and for his descendants after him the pledge of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous on behalf of his God and thus made amends for the Israelites." The Israelite slain with the Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Salu, prince of an ancestral house of the Simeonites. The slain Midianite woman was Cosbi, daughter of Zor, who was head of a clan, an ancestral house in Midian. The Lord then said to Moses, "Treat the Midianites as enemies and crush them, for they have been your enemies by their wily dealings with you as regards Peor and as regards their kinswoman Cosbi, the daughter of a Midianite prince, who was killed at the time of the slaughter because of Peor." Chapter 26. After the slaughter, the Lord said to Moses and Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, "Take a census by ancestral houses throughout the community of the Israelites, of all those of 20 years or more who are fit for military service in Israel." So on the plains of Moab, along the Jericho stretch of the Jordan, Moses and the priest Eleazar registered those of 20 years or more, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Israelites who came out of the land of Egypt were as follows. And then they took the census of the Reubenites, from Palu descended the Eliab, the Simeonites, the Gadites, the sons of Judah, the Issacharites, the Zebulunites, the sons of Joseph, the Ephraimites, the Benjaminites, the Danites, the Asherites, and the Naphtalites. Jumping to verse 52. The Lord said to Moses, "Among those groups the land shall be divided as their heritage in keeping with the number of individuals in each group. To a large group you shall assign a large heritage, to a small group a small heritage, each group receiving its heritage in proportion to the number of men registered in it. But the land shall be divided by lot as the heritage of the various ancestral tribes. As the lot falls, shall each group, large or small, be assigned its heritage." And then they talk about the census of the Levites. All right, chapter 27. Zelophehad, son of Hephor, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph, had daughters named Malaha, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They came forward, and standing in the presence of Moses, the priest, Eleazar, the princes, and the whole community at the entrance of the meeting tent, said, "Our father died in the desert. Although he did not join those who banded together against the Lord and Korah's band, he died for his own sin without leaving any sons. But why should our father's name be withdrawn from his clan merely because he had no son? Let us therefore have property among our father's kinsmen. So this is interesting because this was a very, patriarchal type society. If you noticed in the previous little bit we read about the allotment of the land, that it's divided by the number of people in each group, in each family ancestral line, through the sons, typically. That's how it was. So you have these daughters came up and said, our father died without any sons. So pretty much they were left with nothing because there weren't any brothers. At that time, the brothers would have gotten it. It would have been just, shared, I guess, or they would have gone to their husband's house if they were married. But this is kind of an interesting precedent about to be set. What happens if there are daughters and no sons? Continuing with verse 5. When Moses laid their case before the Lord said to him, the plea of Zelophehad's daughters is just. You shall give them hereditary property among their father's kinsmen, letting their father's heritage pass on to them. Therefore, tell the Israelites, if a man dies without leaving a son, you shall let his heritage pass on to his daughter. If he has no daughter, you shall give his heritage to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall give his heritage to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, you shall give his heritage to his nearest relatives of his clan, who shall then take possession of it. This is the legal norm for the Israelites as the Lord commanded Moses. So he said the daughters can inherit the land. The Lord said to Moses, go up here into the Abarim mountains and view the land that I am giving to the Israelites. When you have viewed it, you too shall be taken to your people, as was your brother Aaron. Because in the rebellion of the community in the desert of Zin, you both rebelled against my order to manifest my sanctity to them by means of the water. This is the water of Meribah and Kadesh in the desert of Zin. Remember, Moses struck the stone instead of commanding it to bring forth water. Then Moses said to the Lord, may the Lord, the God of the spirit of all mankind, set over the community a man who shall act as their leader in all things, to guide them in all their actions, that the Lord's community may not be like sheep without a shepherd. And the Lord replied to Moses, take Joshua, son of Nun, a man of spirit, and lay your hand upon him. Joshua we'll hear more from as the scriptures go on. Have him stand in the presence of the priest Eleazar and the whole community, and commission him before their eyes. Invest him with some of your own dignity, that the whole Israelite community may obey him. He shall present himself to the priest Eleazar to have him seek out for him the decisions of the Urim in the Lord's presence. And as he directs Joshua, all the Israelites with him and the community as a whole shall perform all their actions. Moses did as the Lord had commanded him, taking Joshua and having him stand in the presence of the priest Eleazar and of the whole community. He laid his hands on him and gave him his commission, as the Lord had directed through Moses. Yeah, we hear a lot more from Joshua. The next 2 books from now is the book of Joshua. Next is Deuteronomy. But we'll get to Joshua soon. Okay. Chapter 28 and 29 are, again, more descriptions of what kind of sacrifices to make on different holidays, different times of day for different occasions. General sacrifices like each morning and evening, the new moon feast, the Passover, Pentecost on New Year's Day, on the Day of Atonement, on the Feast of Booths, and whatnot. And so we are going to move past those. We've talked about a lot of that already. Chapter 30. Moses then gave the Israelites these instructions, just as the Lord had ordered him. Moses said to the heads of the Israelite tribes, this is what the Lord has commanded. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or binds himself under oath to a pledge of abstinence, he shall not violate his word, but must fulfill exactly the promise he has uttered. When a woman, while still a maiden in her father's house, makes a vow to the Lord or binds herself to a pledge, if her father learns of her vow or the pledge to which she bound herself and says nothing to her about it, then any vow or any pledge she has made remains valid. But if on the day he learns of it her father expresses to her his disapproval, then any vow or any pledge she has made becomes null and void, and the Lord releases her from it, since her father has expressed to her his disapproval. If she marries while under a vow or under a rash pledge to which she bound herself, and her husband learns of it, yet says nothing to her that day about it, then the vow or pledge she had remains valid. But if on the day he learns of it, her husband expresses to her his disapproval, he thereby annuls the vow she had made or the rash pledge to which she had bound herself, and the Lord releases her from it. The vow of a widow or of a divorced woman or any pledge to which such a woman binds herself is valid. If it is in her husband's house that she makes a vow or binds herself under oath to a pledge, and her husband learns of it yet says nothing to express to her his disapproval, then any vow or any pledge she has made remains valid. But if on the day he learns of them, her husband annuls them, then whatever she has expressly promised in her vow or in her pledge becomes null and void, since her husband has annulled them. The Lord releases her from them. Any vow or any pledge that she makes under oath to mortify herself, her husband can either allow to remain valid or render null and void. But if her husband, day after day, says nothing at all to her about them, he thereby allows as valid any vow or any pledge she has made. He has allowed them to remain valid because on the day he learned of them, he said nothing to her about them. If, however, he countermands them some time after he first learned of them, he is responsible for her guilt. These are the statutes which the Lord prescribed through Moses concerning the relationship between a husband and his wife, as well as between a father and his daughter, while she is still a maiden in her father's house. And last but not least, chapter 31. Extermination of the Midianites. The Lord said to Moses, "Avenge the Israelites on the Midianites, and then you shall be taken to your people." So Moses told the people, "Select men from your midst and arm them for war, to attack the Midianites and execute the Lord's vengeance on them. From each of the tribes of Israel you shall send a band of 1,000 men to war." Jumping to verse 11. Then they took all the booty, the spoils of war, the gold, silver, and whatnot, the booty which the people and beasts they had captured, and brought the captives together with the spoils and booty to Moses and the priest Eleazar and to the Israelite community at their camp on the plains of Moab along the Jericho stretch of the Jordan. And then we're going to jump to verse 48. Then the officers who had been clan and company commanders of the army came up to Moses and said to him, "Your servants have counted up the soldiers under our command, and not one is missing. So to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord, each of us will bring as an offering to the Lord some gold article he has picked up, such as an anklet, a bracelet, a ring, an earring, or a necklace." Moses and the priest Eleazar accepted this gold from them, all of it well-wrought articles. The gold that they gave as a contribution to the Lord amounted in all to 16,750 shekels. This was from the clan and company commanders. What the common soldiers had looted, each one kept for himself. Moses then and the priest Eleazar accepted the gold from the clan and company commanders and put it in the meeting tent as a memorial for the Israelites before the Lord. We're short. Do we want to try chapter 32? Okay, yeah, we're going to read chapter 32, because that'll actually set us up for a really good starting point next week. All right, so continuing on, chapter 32. Now the Reubenites and Gadites had a very large number of livestock. Noticing that the land of Jazer and of Gilead was grazing country, they came to Moses and the priest Eleazar and to the princes of the community and said, "The region of Adaroth, Dibion, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Eliah, Sebam, Nebo, and Balmeon, which the Lord has laid low before the community of Israel, is grazing country. Now since your servants have livestock," they continued, "if we find favor with you, let this land be given to your servants as their property. Do not make us cross the Jordan." But Moses answered the Gadites and Reubenites, "Are your kinsmen then to engage in war while you remain here? Why do you wish to discourage the Israelites from crossing to the land the Lord has given them? That is just what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to reconnoiter the land. They went up into the Wadi Eshol and reconnoitered the land, then so discouraged the Israelites they would not enter the land the Lord had given them. At that time the wrath of the Lord flared up, and he swore, 'Because they have not followed me unreservedly, none of these men of 20 years or more who have come up from Egypt shall enter None of these men of 20 years or more who have come up from Egypt shall ever see this country I promised under oath to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, except the Kenizzite Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun, who have followed the Lord unreservedly. So in his anger with the Israelites, the Lord made them wander in the desert 40 years until the whole generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord had died out. And now here you are, a brood of sinners, rising up in your father's place to add still more to the Lord's blazing wrath against the Israelites. If you turn away from following him, he will make them stay still longer in the desert, and so you will bring about the ruin of this whole nation. But they were insistent with him. We wish only to build sheepfolds here for our flocks and towns for our families, but we ourselves will march as troops in the van of the Israelites until we have led them to their destination. Meanwhile, our families can remain here in the fortified towns, safe from attack by the natives. We will not return to our homes until every one of the Israelites has taken possession of his heritage, and will not claim any heritage with them once we cross the Jordan, so long as we receive a heritage for ourselves on this eastern side of the Jordan. Moses said to them in reply, if you keep your word to march as troops in the Lord's vanguard, and to cross the Jordan in full force before the Lord until he has driven his enemies out of the way, and the land is subdued before him, then you may return here. Quit of every obligation to the Lord and to Israel, and this region shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you do not do this, you will sin against the Lord, and you can be sure that you will not escape the consequences of your sin. Build the towns, then, for your families, and the folds for your flocks, but also fulfill your express promise. The Gadites and the Reubenites answered Moses, your servants will do as you command, my lord. While our wives and children, our herds, and other livestock remain in the towns of Gilead, all your servants will go across as armed troops to battle before the Lord, just as your lordship says. Moses therefore gave this order in their regard to the priest Eleazar, to Joshua son of Nun, and to the heads of the ancestral tribes of the Israelites. If all the Gadites and Reubenites cross the Jordan with you as combat troops before the Lord, you shall give them Gilead as their property when the land has been subdued before you. But if they will not go across with you as combat troops before the Lord, you shall bring their wives and children and livestock across before you into Canaan, and they shall have their property with you in the land of Canaan. To this the Gadites and Reubenites replied, we will do what the Lord has commanded us, your servants. We ourselves will go across into the land of Canaan as troops before the Lord, but we will retain our hereditary property on this side of the Jordan. So Moses gave them, the Gadites and Reubenites, as well as half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with its towns, and the districts that surround them. The Gadites rebuilt the fortified towns of Dibon, Adaroth, Oror, Atroth Shaphan, Jazer, Jogbehah, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, and they built sheepfolds. The Reubenites rebuilt Heshbon, Eliah, Kirathaim, Nebo, Baalmeon, names to be changed, and Sibmah. These towns which they rebuilt, they called by their old names. The descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, invaded Gilead and captured it, driving out the Amorites who were there. Moses gave Gilead to Machir, son of Manasseh, and he settled there. Jair, a Manassite clan, campaigned against the tent villages, captured them, and called them Havoth Jair. Noba also campaigned against Kenath, captured it with its dependencies, and called it Noba after his own name. So there we will stop, because we're about to get close to the promised land. So on that note, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, I will see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.